Hello and welcome to another happiness class. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're live or watching it later on, I hope this is going to be really useful. Let me try to get through all the things on my list. So this is a weekly class. It happens every Thursday, 1 hour from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the first half hour, I always talk about something that's what I think is absolutely necessary for your happiness. There are actually 33 classes. This is class number 7, and today we're going to be talking about God. Very briefly, what has God got to do with happiness? Well, if there is a God, and it's very easy to prove that there is a God, then it'd be crazy not to be aware of God and know what God wants as your creator. And especially the God that I know of, who's been throughout the ages, before Islam and before all sorts of religions, has always trying to help us through religions. It would be crazy not to take that advice, because God knows us better than we do. He's our designer. God is our designer. So that's our first half hour. We're going to talk about God. You can ask me any questions at any point. Just join in the live chat. And then the second half hour, you can ask me about anything at all, basically about life. Yeah. So very quickly, what I'm talking about doesn't come from me, but comes from Islam. Islam is unique because it's scientific, it's inclusive because it accepts all other religions before it. You don't even have to become a Muslim to go to heaven. And there are text summaries of everything I'm saying. Find out more at bigquestionsanswer.com for all the previous shows and anything else you might want there. Also, ask me questions, in the non-live comments after my show if you want. But yeah, let's go for it. So, God, proof that God exists and why it matters if God exists or not. So, I always split my show into 7, or the class as it were, into 7 parts, 7 arguments for whatever I want to say. Number 1 is there are systems, machines that keep us alive. So I'll just read from the summary. God says in the Holy Quran, that's the guidebook for life for all of humanity, including especially Muslims, and in the alternation of night and day. So alternation means the changing of the night and day, and the provision or food that we get, that Allah, that is God, sends down from the skies. So I'm going to be translating the translation. I think I'll update the text summary soon as well. I do the text summary very quickly, so I don't really have much time to think about everything. But anyway, in the alternation of the night and day and the provision that Allah, that is God, sends down from the skies, whereby He stimulates the earth after its death. So, I mean, when something dries up and there's no seeds and there's no whatever, when rain comes down, suddenly everything comes back to life. And in the changing of the winds are signs for a people who try to understand. So that's chapter 45, verse 6 of the Holy Quran. In the text summary, you can click on the link and you can go to that verse and you can see even an explanation, you can see the translation, different languages and everything. Okay. So that's in a text summary, which is on bigquestionsanswer.com for this particular lesson. Everything's on the front page of bigquestionsanswer.com. So let me explain what I was just said. That verse of the Holy Quran is very much like poetry. It takes a bit of a thought to understand it. I'll just quickly read my explanation. Although they are not made of metal or held up with pillars, there are endless systems at work that keep us alive. One is the track the Earth is following. So one is the track the Earth is following around the sun at a perfect distance from the sun so that we do not burn up or freeze. So there's a invisible track, as it were, that the Earth is going, which the Earth follows perfectly around the sun. Okay, I could go into it in more detail, but I'm trying to avoid it so that you guys can ask me questions. But that is not enough to keep us alive. If it wasn't for the Earth spinning giving us night and day, the Earth would still burst into flames or turn into an ice ball. So this spinning, spreads out the heat, as it were. Otherwise, we could still burn, like if we always face the sun and things like that. Okay, so it's perfect spin. What else? Yeah. Then comes the clouds. No tracks, no pillars, yet they go about their work transporting and purifying tons of water. By the way, 1 cubic meter of water weighs a ton. Okay, this much water weighs a ton. It's incredibly heavy stuff. Okay, so it would not be long before we would all be dead if it wasn't for the clouds, seeds, the changing of the winds, and so that the clouds and seeds go to different places. These are all signs of God if you at least try to understand. These are just kind of just re-explaining and reusing the words of the verses of the Holy Quran, just adding a bit of explanation. Okay, next bit, arrogance. So we can see it's pretty. I'll just read it. So arrogance, the real reason why people disbelieve in God. God says in the Holy Quran, He has created man from a mere drop of fluid, but lo, he is an open disputer. So you should just know, by the way, that this is all translated from the Arabic. There's a good reason for it to be all in Arabic. There's a whole long story behind it. Very good reason, but yeah, this is the best. This is a translation because Arabic is very dense. It packs a lot more meaning than English does. Okay, so anyway, so that's chapter 16, verse 5 of the Holy Quran. Again, you can click on the link in the text summary of this lesson on bigquestionsanswered.com, and you'll get the translation and all sorts of other more in-depth commentary on it. So anyway, despite starting life as an unimportant as unimportant as a mere sperm drop, some people are so arrogant as to ignore the overwhelming evidence and conclude that God does not exist. If someone wants to argue against the existence of God after they themselves have been developed into an amazingly complex organism from a mere sperm drop, then that means they are openly lying. And that's a rough explanation of what the verse was saying. I can understand that people have had a bad time with religion, but using that as an excuse to forget God is shooting yourself in the foot. Who who is who is more lost? Who Okay, sorry. I've made notes, but sentences aren't perfect. Who is more lost in their way than someone who has left God? Okay, so God exists and you forget God, your creator. How lost can you be? And that's kind of the realization people are finding in the modern world. Without God, people really do feel lost. You can see that in depression and things like that. Cool, that went quickly. So anyway, if you got any questions, join in, please ask. Um, I think I might, since I've got another few seconds, I might talk about that. So you'll find that people somehow jump to these conclusions that God cannot possibly exist, and they consider themselves very clever. But I don't. And by the way, it's good to say that I was an atheist, and I thought I was very clever in not believing in God. And one reason why I didn't believe in God is exactly because I thought those people who believed in God, those who I knew, couldn't answer my questions or they didn't behave very well. But them not being able to answer my question doesn't stop God from existing. Like if I said, prove to me water exists and they couldn't do it, it doesn't stop water from existing. Or if they behave badly, it doesn't stop water from existing. So next bit. Guidance. Number 3, guidance. Following our maintenance book. God says in the Holy Quran, "This day have I perfected your religion for you and completed my favor upon you and have chosen for you Islam as religion." Laws in every country are different. That is because what is right and wrong is complicated. God has done us a favor by making the Holy Quran and previous guides, so different religions before that, because in Islam you actually have to believe in all the other religions before, because they're all from God, that fit with our design. So the Holy Quran is a guide that fits with our design, which God knows best. So God has given this guidebook how to live if you want to. It's a choice, giving us free will. We can ignore it if we want. And God has made it, and God, knowing our design best, knows best what we should do with our lives to be happy in things. Islam is a complete way of life. Other religions were good for when we were less developed, like cavemen. So they were good for previous times, but we've developed since being cavemen, and there are some gaps in what they offered. But now we are ready for teachings such as spending more time remembering God so that we stay with our purpose. So these sentences are absolutely terrible. I can't believe it. I'm going to really paraphrase or explain my own sentences. We're more developed, so we now are ready to spend more time remembering God. So we've got the 5 daily prayers that keeps us in touch with our purpose. Before, if we were cavemen just surviving, maybe we spent more time killing animals and just keeping alive and really basic things, and we weren't that intelligent either. So maybe it wasn't worth us praying 5 times a day. It's a very advanced thing to do. I compare it to um, advanced civilizations where we eat more times in a day. We might have tea, we might have breakfast, tea, lunch, all these different things. um, so it keeps us in touch with our purpose. There are other things that you won't find so much in other religions, like don't drink alcohol, which messes with the systems in our bodies, again, making us depressed and do bad things, and of course, getting off track from our purpose. So, yeah. Um, so basically, what I'm saying is Islam is the most advanced form of religion. I recommend you follow it as much as you can. That's again why I've chosen Islam as the guide for this happiness class. I could have chosen different religions, and sometimes I do quote from other religions because there are a lot of similarities as well. But people have been messing around, as most people know, with these other religious texts, and that's why there's all sorts of confusion in them and all sorts of incorrect things about them. For example, in the Bible it says the universe was made in 6 days, actual 6 days, and things like that. And even if it wasn't actual 6 days, the order in which things happened are very odd and not in line with science. But everything in Islam is 100% in line with science, hasn't been tampered with by human beings. Okay. Number 4, nature. Our souls have spiritual needs. I just made that face because, again, title wasn't great. I wrote something wrong. I don't know. God says in the Holy Quran, and I do call to witness the self-accusing soul that the day of judgment is a certainty. Chapter 75, verse 3. You cannot ignore your soul, be as it will accuse you of everything you do wrong in your life and make you feel depressed about it. How do I make so many spelling mistakes and incorrect words, eh? All right. What is wrong and right has been has been explained in Islam. When we do good things, we feel good. Good things include being friendly with our neighbors, planting trees, and not eating too much. So often on American TV shows, you can see it's almost encouraged to eat loads of food as if that's going to make you happy. And it doesn't make you happy, actually makes you drowsy, makes you feel bad. And so Islam is a very subtle religion where when you do eat less, you feel more alive, in fact. And psychologists have shown that eating too much is just a way of trying to dampen our depression. We take drugs, but we also eat too much food and things like that to overcome that sadness within ourselves. But actually, by doing that, by dampening the the sadness, you actually limit the amount of good feelings you can have. So if you're ever interested, there are lots of very interesting talks and information on YouTube about that. So for some of the top TED talks are about that particular topic. Can't remember what the word was. Anyway, for example, psychologists tell us, oh, maybe I've written here. Psychologists tell us that being in natural environments keeps us from being depressed. So yeah, so I talked about planting trees is an actual part of Islam. I would say Islam is a environmental extremist religion. It says things like, um, even if you're on your last breath, then and you have a seed in your hand, you should plant that seed. Now, how do you know any other religion that's as pro environment as that? So, for example, psychologists tell us that being in natural environments keep us from being depressed. See TED Talk. This could be why you're depressed and anxious by Johan Hari. So there's a link basically in the text summary to that TED Talk. It's a really good one. Cool. Half a minute. So what can I say about that? So all I'm trying to say in summary is that we have souls. The way we operate is that if we do anything bad, we feel it, that we can't escape from it. We don't have to wait until the next, the day of judgment, as it were. And that's, we know that when we come to phrases like, how do you sleep well at night? Because we know deep down that we can't escape our bad deeds. And hopefully, and we benefit from our good deeds as well. Number 5, blueprint. We all already know. We all already know God exists. I write these things, but I don't imagine how it sounds when I'm going to say them. So, God says in the Holy Quran, and when thy Lord brings forth from Adam's children out of their loins, your private parts, their offsprings, and makes them witness against their own souls by saying, am I not your Lord? They say, yes, we do bear witness. This he, that is God, does, lest Old English. This is what God does, just in case. I'm paraphrasing or translating to modern English. This is what God does, just in case you say on the day of resurrection, when you have to come back to life and face God, we were unaware of this. So let me paraphrase that to make it a bit easier to understand with all that old English. So when you're born, God makes you witness against yourself. And he says, in a way, am I not your Lord? Am I not God? Do I exist? And you say, yes, you do. Okay, so it might sounds a bit strange, like, how is that possible? I didn't have a conversation with God when I was born and this kind of stuff, and what's the proof and all this stuff. The proof is coming. scientific proof test, but not exactly like you might imagine. And so basically, the reason why it's absolutely necessary is that everybody already knows in their blueprint, in their DNA, that God exists, is that then you have no excuse when you come to meet God. You can't say, I didn't really know God exists. So what I'm saying is there's no such thing as an atheist. And let me prove that or explain that. Tests have been done on atheists where they were asked to challenge God to harm them or their loved ones. And there's a link to the research paper. These atheists subconsciously showed signs of stress when they did. That suggests that deep down they believe there must be a God, but they rather not admit it. It is not a new phenomenon that, you know, the atheists actually do believe in God. When people feel they are about to die or they have no other option, like they're about to die and they're being threatened or something, they often call out to God. One of my students, for example, who used to love insulting God, admitted he did that. He called out to God. Um, so he was a young guy and he was in the middle of a forest, felt lost, and he said, I don't know which God is correct, but whichever God you are, please help me. And then somebody tapped him on the shoulder out of nowhere and said, That's the way, you know? So, and he admitted that. So I think kids are a bit more honest than adults sometimes. Um, it was necessary for God to make belief as part of our blueprint so that we could not say on the day of resurrection we were unaware of this, that God exists. Okay, number 6, alive. Ask God if he is real. God says in the Holy Quran, and when my servants asks you about me, that is God asks you about me, say, I am near. I answer the prayer of the supplicant when he prays to me, so that they should listen to me and believe in me, that they may follow the right way. Chapter 2, verse 187 of the Holy Quran. The above verse is both a way to show God exists and a reason we need God. God promises in this verse that God will respond to your prayers if you become a servant of God. That is, someone who listens to God's commands, like being nice to people, other people. That's a God's command. Be nice to other human beings. God doesn't need anything from you, just wants you to be nice to other human beings. Okay? Any step you take towards God, God takes 10 steps towards you. So that doesn't mean to be a servant, you have to do everything right. Okay? You just have to make an effort. Say, I'm going to try. I commit to listening to you. It's not like some sort of game where, say, I want proof that God exists, and then you just ignore every proof that comes along. Yeah, you got to show that you're actually interested by saying, "All right, okay, you say you're alive. I'm just the human being. I'm not the God. I shouldn't be so arrogant to say God has to do everything for me and I do nothing for God." Okay, um, so do something first. Prove it. Find out what Islam teaches. I'll tell you what Islam teaches. Be good, nice to your neighbors. Do that with that intention. Then ask God, where are you? And you're guaranteed an answer, one way or the other. Okay, so any step you take, God is not just a theory, but a reality of millions of people's lives, helping in their daily lives. Could improve that sentence. The benefit of having God, the creator of the universe, on your side is that God helps you living your best life, one that brings you closer to God. So, what's the benefit of, talking to God? Well, kind of like what I said earlier on. Um, God's going to help you out. So, God's giving you a book, but God also, when you make an action, you you start understanding that the various dimensions of that book. It's something like you can listen to the story of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and all the sacrifices he made, but you can't possibly understand it if you don't make any of those sacrifices. It's just a distant sort of truth. You can't really appreciate it. But when you do start following this path, then you start experiencing many of the experiences that he had. So um, you can relate a lot more. So you might have people saying, becoming your enemy just because you're speaking the truth, even though you're being really polite. And so if a person is not following Islam or following the path of God can't really appreciate that. They can only theorize it. It's just like seeing a star and thinking it's a tiny dot. Only when you come close to it can you appreciate what it is. Anyway, number 7, meaning. It is depressing if you are just an accident. That's the title, by the way. These are all titles, and then I'd say the verse of the Holy Quran. God says in the Holy Quran, most definitely people are lost, except those who believe and do righteous deeds and encourage each other to accept truth and encourage each other to be patient. Psychologists, that's chapter 103, verse 3 to 4. Psychologists tell us that meaning is essential for our happiness. Again, there's a link to a famous book to explain, uh, you know, go into more depth about that. Logically speaking, and consequently, practically as well, as we cannot ignore the obvious logic, there is no point or meaning to anything if we have come into existence by mistake. Atheists are known to be more depressed than those with faith, which makes sense, as when this life ends, there is nothing else, and all your work will eventually come to nothing. So, if you're an atheist, you think life's all a big mistake, you just came into the world by some random error, millions of random errors collected together somehow. Of course, that's very unreasonable. And yeah, so it's all going to end. It's going to have no meaning. There's no point of it. You're just, you make something, it's all going to deteriorate, going to disappear. Give it a million years, give it a billion years, all of human race would have disappeared, just logically speaking. So what's the point of it all? And that's exactly how many atheists I speak to feel like. Actually, I'm struggling to think otherwise, right? From my experience of it's just a natural reaction. If you I'm constantly talking to people who are saying, "What's the point? What's the point?" When when they feel God doesn't exist, what's the point of life? Okay, so God gives us a mission for our lives to make the world a beautiful place. The effect of our good deeds leave an imprint on our souls, which the body we which is the body we take to the eternal next life. So whatever good we do, so you can see, the atheists will say there's no point of anything, you can do anything, but it's all going to go to waste eventually, it's all going to disappear. But what a believer in God can tell you, or at least in Islam, everything you do has an effect on your body. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says when you do a bad deed, it leaves a black mark, as it were, on your soul. And the Quran says things like, even your fingers will bear witness against you if you do something wrong. So what that means is every tiny action has a positive or negative effect on your soul, and you get that feeling. You can see that people who are allow themselves to watch their own feelings, they can see that when they do good things, they feel lighter, they feel better, and when they do bad things, it makes you feel more hopeless and more bad about yourself. And yeah, so Hopefully you found that interesting or useful. I think I talk to lots of people all the time, and these are really essential things that people are confused about. Now, if you want, you can ask me any questions you want. If you don't have questions, don't worry. I've got loads of questions lined up. Let's do it. First question. Why? So this is a question that was asked last week. It seems when my friend Alika, if I remembered it right, when she's asking questions, everybody else asks questions. So come on, guys, don't be shy about asking questions. Don't wait for her to ask questions. You know, just ask questions by yourself. Anyway, but she asked a great question, and I started answering it. And then I thought, oh, I missed out some really interesting things. So her question was, why is it was I'm just roughly remembering it, yeah, and it went something like, why is Islam so boring? It doesn't allow jokes and music. So that's her question. I think I should put that in the chat. I think it's yeah, that's what I did last time, didn't I? So I'll put that in the chat. How do I do it? Put it here? Yeah, paste. All right. There's things getting in the way, you see. Then I click on that, and then it should show. Oh, it's not showing. Why is it not showing? That's interesting. Why is my comment not showing on the screen? Have I pressed something wrong? I don't know. That's weird. Click. No. Click chat. Oh, maybe no. No. No, no, no. Not that button. Very weird. I don't know. Why is it not showing? I've got no idea. Should be on the screen, but it's not. I'm gonna have to figure that one out. It's a bit weird. Okay, so the question is, why is Islam so boring? It doesn't allow jokes and music. And so, first of all, I thought that as a Muslim, I didn't think that made any sense. Like, from my experience, um, I've read so many sayings of Prophet Muhammad that he used to. There's one quote that goes something like, I've never seen a person smile as much as Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So I thought, "Oh, okay, doesn't seem to fit into the picture of Islam that I know." But just before this live stream, I thought I'd just do a quick Google, like, is joking allowed in Islam? And there was immediately the first result was yes. And there's a quote from Prophet Muhammad. He said, somebody asked him, come and joke with us. And he said, sure, as long as there's no lying in it. Don't tell lies. So sometimes it is people who ask these kind of questions. I recommend you do. I encourage you to ask questions, but also be honest with yourself. You could have found out that answer pretty easily. I think it would have been pretty easy. It took me a few seconds. My first one Google search, top result, the answer was there. So there are people who just come up with all sorts of allegations against Islam, but they could have found the answers if they wanted to. But Alika, you're my top questioner, answer. So it's good having your questions. And sometimes I'm like, is that thing true that you're quoting about Islam? But anyway, and then you said there's no music. And I thought, oh, how did I not? So I did explain that, Islam is not a miserable religion. That was a word she used, and I forgot about that. Islam can't be a miserable religion because all the happiness classes I'm teaching you, all the teachings are from Islam. So, and all these answers that I'm giving have been supported by psychologists way after Islam taught them. So, it's very advanced in happiness. It's the happiest religion there is. There's no religion that compares to it and is as comprehensive as it. I mean, I love to, I'd like to challenge anybody to say something like Buddhism has even a fraction of the answers Islam has. Yeah. I don't think many people, by the way, know what Buddhism is mostly, because most of the quotes you see about Buddhism are not from Buddha. People just make up quotes, and you can check that out. I was shocked to find that out, actually. But anyway, so about music, Islam is famous for the call to prayer, the adhan, and people even convert to Islam after listening to it. That's how beautiful the sound is. And having lived in a Muslim country, I would recommend listening it not just on YouTube, but you can check it out. Adhan, ADAN, okay, call to Muslim call to prayer. It is beautiful on YouTube, probably with headphones on or something, if you can get the 3D effect. But if you can go to a Muslim country, there's something beautiful about the how natural it is, how humid it is, and if you hear the echo in within a community, I think there's something about that it brings to life something about the community and our humanity. It's a beautiful thing. And also, when reading the Quran, I think I recommend going onto YouTube and listening to the Quran, and it's recommended in Islam that we sing it or read it as beautifully as we can, and it's absolutely beautiful. People listen to it just to relax and calm down, and it's not like regular music, which has got lots of attention paid to not so much the words, but also all sorts of um, instruments to make you feel something which is not natural. So you get addicted to all sorts of music, and the music doesn't necessarily have a good message, especially some of the modern rap music. It's got very negative stories, and even non-rap music can be really depressing or have wrong messages and things like that. So something like the Quran has beautiful good messages, healthy messages, so you can listen to it as music. So all I'm saying is that it's good that the Quran doesn't let you obsess about music, so you get sidetracked into, you know, listening and getting too excited about music and forgetting your purpose and making progress with your life and things like that. But there is an element of music in Islam, and it's a really healthy version of it, I would say. And you don't have people dancing around naked while, you know, offering that music. It's all beautiful. People are well dressed when they're doing it, and they're not really particularly seen. There's just, you know, the words, the poetry, the beautiful things they're saying, like especially like the Adhan. Really recommend you listening to that. Okay, next question. I want to try again. So this is the question that Alika asked me in, not in doing a show, but offline, well, in a comment section of some of my videos. I wonder if that's worked. No, it's not showing. I don't know why. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to try something. Maybe if I click, click, click. Definitely something's happened with the settings, and I don't know what. Got no idea. Anyway, captions. Click on that. Oh, that's working now. And then that. No, no. Captions off. Chat. Okay, never mind. So Alika asked this question. Let's get back into that. That. Like that. Sorry, just moving things around again. Okay, Alika asked this question, which is, why does Islam allow slave women to be forced into sex? And she quoted Quran 30, chapter 33, verse 51. And again, it doesn't make any sense. If you've got if you actually read through like the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So, for example, most of his wives were over 50, I think. They're pretty old. They're not particularly wanted from other people. And so it kind of doesn't make sense in many ways. But the verse of the Quran that was quoted is completely misquoted. Really, it's really bad translations where that could be suggested from it. So there were some sayings of Prophet Muhammad which he quoted, and I can't remember it, but you have to always remember sayings of Prophet Muhammad are might not be reliable. They might be made up or misunderstood, and I would say the quotes that she gave were actually fairly easy to understand, but for some reason she completely, I think, chose to misunderstand it or something. But what's more reliable is just going to the Holy Quran. Okay, so the Holy Quran, in the particular verse that was mentioned, and if anybody wants questioned, you can question me after the show, explains all that was being said was that you can marry Prophet Muhammad or whoever if you want, but you're not going to be well off if you marry Prophet Muhammad, because he doesn't keep much money for himself. He gives the money away to all the community. So he was a king and he was very successful, started taking over many lands, yet he gave away everything. And he let people, his subjects, even bully him, so they even tore his clothes, saying, "We want more, we want more." He's very, very humble. So he's saying, like, you can either be with me, but you're going to be very poor, or I will give you loads of money and you can be free. How do people turn that upside down and say you're going to be a sex slave or something, which is really weird that people even come to that conclusion. Anyway, there's not much else to say about that other than please do research and go to you know go to the text summaries where I've got the quotes of the Holy Quran, and then do check out these same verses. If you go to an anti-Islam website, fair enough, okay, maybe they will find the holes in Islam really quickly. I don't recommend relying on those websites though, because they routinely mistranslate things, and you don't know Arabic, so you can't be sure, right? They routinely you know when they've got something to hide when they only translate half the verse of the Holy Quran. Then that's really a sign that you shouldn't trust these websites and things like that. So don't just rely on those websites. Go to my text summaries, which have links to verses of the Holy Quran. Then you get to that website where you can check out any verse of the Holy Quran and compare the translations to these anti-Islam websites. So I think it's always helpful for me to kind of enable you guys to find out for yourself if you are looking into Islam. Of course, I'm always ready to help. Always see messages or notifications on any of my YouTube videos. I do daily YouTube videos, so make a comment on any of them. Ask me a question on any of them. I'm very happy to answer them and guide you if you need any particular resource. They're all loads and loads of free material for anything you want about Islam. Anyway, next question. How can it be fair if Islam is the one true religion and someone in the world has not heard of it and cannot benefit from it? Okay, so what sense does it make? So this is actually a question. Oh, cool, Anwar. I've got your question. Okay, and for some reason, nothing is showing when I click on it. Let me just click on the three dots. No, it's really weird. Anyway, so Anwar's got a question, and it goes, some atheists, mathematicians, can prove mathematically that logically God can only exist in duplicate, not one. Does this mean that maths is an atheist subject? So that does not sound right at all. Wa alaikum assalam. He says, Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be upon you. So I said, peace be upon you too. That does not sound right at all. So if I was to summarize what you Anwar is saying, is that some mathematicians claim that God must be two. There must be two gods, and that is absolutely against everything that science and mathematics teaches. Everything in science points to one God existing. Um, there's so what's it called? So all scientists or all top mathematicians are looking for a universal principle, or you know the theory that explains everything. I can't remember the exact word, but there's even a great movie about from Stephen Hawking. Everybody knows Stephen Hawking's the guy who used to be alive and who lived in a wheelchair, had an electronic voice and things. Okay, and his movie is The Theory of Everything, right? It's a common thing, that or a common goal of all mathematicians, scientists, to look for a universal one cause for everything. So that points also to a single God. So wherever you read that, that's just, I don't know how to describe it other than rubbish, really. I'd love to, if you want to, post a comment with some sort of reference, I could check that up and give a more in-depth answers after I've looked at it. But it really seems to be against any understanding of science and mathematics. And science is very strongly related to mathematics. So, for example, Einstein, one of the most famous scientists, basically was a mathematician. Okay, so mathematics is the logic that describes the universe or the world we live in, and which is another an arm of science, as it were. So yeah, very doesn't make sense. So does that mean maths is an atheist subject? No, I would say atheists are okay. So a lot of atheists defy most of mathematics. So if you were to simply follow statistics or mathematics, the probabilities, simple probabilities, will tell you that God must exist. Like, just for a single hemoglobin enzyme, I think it's called an enzyme, okay, for that to be made by a series of errors is 1 over 10 to the power roughly 50, okay? So 10 to the power 50 is such a huge number. It's like, 1 with 50 zeros, that that number is bigger than the number of atoms in the universe, okay? Basically, practically, there is no way even a single hemoglobin enzyme could have been created by mistake. Single one. And you need that to make one blood cell, right? So not even one blood cell. You got billions of blood cells being, created all the time in your body, right? So not one human being should have been made through through the lifespan of the whole universe. So if we were made by a series of errors. So, by the way, should be clear, I believe in science. So there's nothing in science that contradicts my beliefs. In when I say my beliefs, the teachings of Islam. Um, so some people might say, "Oh, evolution disproves, you know, religion and the existence of God." No, evolution just means things were created in stages. And in fact, Islam describes God as the evolver. So the word Rab means the creator who creates in stages, or the creator who evolves. So um, basically, what I'm saying is, does maths is maths an atheist subject? Not at all. Atheists ignore it. There is this propaganda that it is atheists who follow science, but They do not at all. And the greatest scientists are the ones who actually believed in God. So atheists hate this. They claim that Einstein didn't believe in God, but even though Einstein talked about God all the time, he said God does not play with dice with the universe, and they they tried to say that he believed in a sort of non-living God or something, and Einstein was put under a lot of pressure to detract his God comments. But anyway, hopefully that explains somewhat what's wrong with that claim that there must be two gods. And no, I would say mathematics is an Islamic subject, because the very numbers necessary for mathematics to work are based on Arabic. They sometimes say Indo-Arabic numerals, but whatever. And the Arabs or the Muslims invented zero for also essential for mathematics to work. So I'm a mathematics teacher, so I know a few things. Algebra, absolutely essential for the E equals MC squared. That's algebra, again created by a Muslim, Al-Khwarizmi, in his so it's definitely not an atheist subject. Atheism is kind of a modern fashion, I would describe it, and I would say almost a dying fashion. People like Richard Dawkins are really unpopular nowadays. People are realizing that they atheists, all they say is, it doesn't exist. I just don't believe it. That's their own religion. It's very much a religion, and it's not anywhere near fact, because it's, as I said right in the beginning, they're ignoring basic probabilities. The probability of God not existing is, if you want to be nice, you could say 0.99999 forever. Basically 99.99%, pretty much 100%. Okay, that's being nice. Okay, and the probability of God not existing is like 0.00000, and eventually you might put a 1 there percent. Basically no chance. Yet atheists, choose to go with a 0% chance and ignore the reality that God must exist. So yeah, thanks for that question. Give me an opportunity to, come at, explain a lot of different things. Let me just throw in a few other questions I'd lined up, but please do ask me another question in the next 5 minutes if you got one, and I really appreciate it. Let me just get. Why do these are questions that I've picked up from different conversations? Why do women have to wear headscarves in Islam? Isn't that stopping them from being free? So, as I usually start off with this kind of question, most of the converts to Islam are women. In America, it's 4 times as many as men. They love, you know, every aspect of Islam, including the headscarf bit, because they are more self-aware and they feel more relaxed when they wear a headscarf. There was a great I'm going to quote something, but about a video, and I can always find this if anybody is interested, right? So just ask me in the comments below, or even in the live comments now. There was a lecture happening where there were, university students somewhere in America, and there's this non-Muslim lecturer. He's very kind of, experimental, and he said he asked some Muslim girls to come to the front, and then he asked some non-Muslim girls to come to the front, and he did an experiment. He said, you Muslim girls, put a headscarf on these other girls who are not Muslim, and then he asked these non-Muslim girls, how do you feel wearing a headscarf? And they loved it. They actually loved it. They just felt more relaxed. So headscarves, great thing. I know that, as a teacher, I know that women teachers, they have to spend so much time getting ready. It's really stressful. Being a teacher, you have to get up really early in the morning already. And then on top of that, you have to get up an hour, maybe 3 hours earlier. people, when I'm shocked about the amount of effort women have to put into looking good enough for work. It's huge, it's crazy. And us men, we just turn up. I barely comb my hair, you know. um that's not fair, so on women. And so and women naturally kind of compete with each other in looks. So if everybody's wearing simple loose clothing, then everybody feels comfortable. And Muslim women feel a lot more comfortable than uh, Western women, who are under huge amount of pressure to compete even with airbrushed magazines. Airbrush means this kind of fake, digital effect to make people look skinnier and better and all sorts of other things. Um, so, yeah, that's another answer. Let's go for another question. Why is there suffering in the world? And so, their suffering doesn't just have no benefit. So, people who are like, you could say, why is there suffering when you have to study? Like, why is studying so hard and things like that? And people love actually studying, going through the struggle and achieving something. So that's one answer. People, often the atheists, like to kind of um, e- express suffering as if there's only suffering and it isn't so many great things happening in the world. In fact, we as human beings, as shown again by psychologists, especially these self-help gurus, will tell you that if you really want to enjoy life, it's progress, and progress is through struggle. So that struggle is really enjoyable. In fact, it is a nightmare if you had no feeling of struggle and strain and of making an effort. If you were, for example, just to live on a beach your whole life and uh, no challenge in your life, that would absolutely be a nightmare. I was just given an article a short while before this show by my wife, and they said there's a sweet spot where if you have too much free time, you actually become miserable. So there's evidence. Again, I could send that quote if anybody's interested. So just suffering, to imagine the world is just suffering is really dishonest. There's so much beauty in the world, but let's say of course there's terrible things that happen in the world. And again, even with those terrible things, people lives turn for the better. People have cancer and their lives become better. But even then, yes, there are things where people don't learn from. So not everybody passes the test, as it were. And that suffering, any suffering you have in this life, is minuscule to the beauty of what you have in the next life. And you say, how do you know there is a next life? I could answer that question in another show. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate anybody who watches. I really appreciate you, Anwar, especially for trying to help me out in the show by asking a question. I think even I'm not sure exactly how the YouTube algorithm works, but um, by asking a question, I think you actually make the question more, sorry, the show more popular on YouTube somehow, and you get the YouTube algorithm to suggest it to other people. And I only do this show because I know this is so desperately necessary. Like, I'm talking to a person who thinks there's no point in life, and he's just finding ways of killing himself, right? These are the things that these people need the answer to. I'm always talking to people with issues, right? So I know this is absolutely necessary. You're welcome as well. Thank you, Anwar says, and you're welcome. Thank you, Anwar. Um, so these are incredibly important issues. I'm always talking to people who are suffering through different problems, and the existence of God is absolutely pivotal to, if you want to be happy, you must believe in God. Um, yeah, so that's it. Thank you, everybody who watches this Please do share the show. If you don't know who to share it with, please at least press the like button to encourage the algorithm, to YouTube algorithm, to share it with other people. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I don't get anything from people subscribing. It's just I want this show to be more helpful to more people. Thank you. Peace be upon you. Have a great week. I hope you do have a great week, and I'll catch you next week on Thursday, 7 p.m. UK time.